going on, everybody? It's Aurora here, coming at you with a brand new video. So, a lot of stuff dropped either like last night or this morning that I was either asleep or couldn't do anything about in the state of mind I was in. So, I'm covering them now. I don't care that I'm late. So basically, there's going to be like two things I'm going to be covering, not in this one video, obviously in separate videos, but yeah, we're going to go ahead and start off with the new Tearalament archetype. So the only thing I know about this archetype is that it involves Visas Starfrost, like Scareclaw does, which is really interesting to me because it makes me wonder if we're going to get another Albaz-esque storyline, or if it's going to be, it's a storyline that combines with Albaz, because I don't know how fast they can make Visas Starfrost storyline stuff before they can finish the Albaz storyline stuff, unless they come in with the spin-off ones like Therians and Splites. But regardless, the description according to YG Organization is Space Isekai Beach episode. Tearalament is a portmanteau of Tiara, Tear, Lament, and Element. Thank you, Konami, for once again jamming as many different terms into one word as you can. Sounds like Konami. But yeah, we're going to go ahead and start off with Tearalament's Meru, one of those things. It's a dark Aqua with 800 attack, 2000 defense. It's a level 2. And it says you can only use each effect once per turn. If it's normal or special summoned, you can send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Okay. And if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can fusion summon a fusion monster from your extra deck by returning fusion materials listed on it from your hand, field, and or grave to the bottom of the deck in any order, including this card in the graveyard. Very nice, actually. That seems like a very powerful effect, being able to I'm assuming all of them get triggered if they're sent by card effects similar to like Shaddolls and stuff. So this seems like it'd be very good if they all have a consistent theming of, you know, milling each other and then triggering effects. And I do know they have like, what, 2 fusion monsters, something like that. And so I think any deck that involves stuff like that would kill to have a card like this. Maybe you'll throw it in Shaddolls, I don't know. Now that I think about it, actually, this can work really good in Shaddolls because not only does it mill and trigger your things, but also lets you fusion summon. It doesn't specify, you know, a Tearalament's one. It just says fusion summon as long as you're using it. So that's a free window. Very nice indeed. Next up, we have Tearalament's Finis. It's a dark Aqua effect, level 3 with 600 attack and 1000 defense. You can only use the first and second effect of this card's name each once per turn. And when your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, quick effect, you can special summon this card from your hand, and if you do, send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. And if it's sent to the grave by card effect, you can fusion, so okay. So it also has the same fusion summon effect. Alright, so I don't know if it'll be a good or a bad thing if they all do the fusion summon thing instead of, you know, just doing their own thing. Also, the trigger effect to special summons kind of because your opponent has to activate a monster effect on the field. So you're not really going to be able to use it turn 1 if you're going first. Maybe it's good going second. That might be the whole catch of it, but we'll just have to see. Next we have Tearalament Shailen. It is a Dark Aqua level 4 with 1800 attack, 1300 defense. You can only use the first and second effect once per turn. During your main phase, you can special it from your hand, and if you do, send a monster from your hand to the graveyard, then send the top 3 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Doesn't look like that's for cost, so that could actually just be better than Meru, just by triggering another one. And then if it's sent to grave by card effect, you fusion summon. I mean, it's a free special summon from hand. Really, what could you complain about? I enjoy things that special themselves from hand for no reason. It doesn't look like it has any sort of restriction anyway either. So this can be used in a lot of different things. Very nice, very nice. Next we have Tearalament's Reinoheart. It is a Water Warrior, level 4 with 1500 attack and 2100 defense. You can only use each effect once per turn. If it's normal or special summon, you can send a Tearalament's monster from your deck to the grave, except Reinoheart. And if it's sent to the grave by card effect, you can special summon, but banish it when it leaves the field. Oh, you can special summon it, but banish it when it leaves the field. And if you do, send a Tearalament's monster from your hand to the graveyard. Okay, so multiple different ways to trigger your Tearalaments here. Being able to mill from deck L and summon is always nice. A lot of decks appreciate stuff like that. And it specials itself back, which is really nice, especially as a level 4. It's also a water, and I think you only need level 4 waters in order to go into Bahamut Shark, so I don't know. Maybe you could go into Bahamut Shark here. That could be really funny. And it gets around the banish effect, so that seems really good there. Next up, we have Tearalament's Kitkalos. This is their first fusion. It is a Dark Aqua level 5, 2300 attack, 1200 defense. That's perfect instant fusion target right there. It requires a Tearalament's monster and an Aqua monster. And you can only use each effect once per turn. If it's special summoned, you can take a Tearalament's card from your deck and either add it to your hand and send it to the graveyard. You can target a monster you control, special summon a Tearalament's from your hand or grave, and if you do, send the targeted monster to the graveyard. And if it's sent to the grave by card effect, you can send the top 5 cards of your deck to the graveyard. Really good, especially as an instant fusion target here. Being able to either add to your hand or send to the graveyard any of your cards, not even just monster, just card, especially when they all trigger when they're sent to the grave, is of course really nice. Or you can always just add something to hand in order to get the free advantage, you know, with something like Shailen and things like that. Plus, being able to just mill 5 for absolutely free if it's sent to the grave by a card effect is always really good, especially because it can send itself to the grave to trigger its effect to send from hand or grave. or special from hand or grave, I'm sorry. And then next is their other fusion, Tearalament's Kaleida Harp. It's a Dark Fiend fusion. It's level 9 with 3000 attack and defense. Konami tried to come up with more interesting attack stats for boss monsters in 3000 challenge, impossible. It requires Reinoheart specifically and 2 Aqua monsters. It cannot be used as fusion material, and you can only use each effect once per turn. If it's special summoned or another Aqua monster is sent to the grave by card effect while it's on the field, you can target a card your opponent controls and shuffle it into the deck. And if it's sent to the graveyard by card effect, you can special summon it, and if you do, send a Tearalament's card from your deck to the graveyard. So it is a once per turn, correct? But it doesn't have any restriction on the summon back. So in theory, this is just a slightly worse DPE. Overall, it seems perfectly fine though, because it works on special summon period, not just on fusion summon, so even when it summons itself back. And so you get to just, it does target admittedly, but you do get to shuffle something into the deck, which is arguably the best form of removal in the game, other than banishing face down. And then also being able to not only summon it back, but also dump one of your cards from deck to grave in order to trigger them is always really good as well. Plus, you know, some really big stats. Next up is their field spell, Pellureno, the Primal Parallel Ruined Realm. I'm not saying that ever again. You can only activate one card with its name per turn, and you can only use the third effect of this card's name once per turn. When it resolves, you can add a Tearalament monster or a Visas Starfrost from your deck to your hand. Fusion monsters and Tearalament monsters you control gain 500 attack. And if a Tearalament monster or monsters is returned from your field and or graveyard to the deck and or extra deck, you can target a card in the field and destroy it. Obviously, being able to search for, you know, any of your monsters or even Visas Starfrost, which is kind of from your deck to your hand, is really good, especially because it's on resolution, meaning that if I believe this correctly, it cannot be Ash Blossomed, so that is really, really good. The stat boost is really nice because, you know, it does affect even your fusion monsters, so that makes it a 3500 attack level 9 boss monster. Really nice there. Especially because I think it stacks, because not only is it a Tearalament monster, but it's also a fusion monster, so I think your fusion monsters gain 1000, so that's really nice. And then, obviously, this works every time you fusion someone with any of your card effects, and so, of course, you're going to be able to get removal all the time. Unfortunately, it is a once per turn, but it's not really that much of an issue. So not only do you have shuffling removal, but you also still have some card removal just by targeting and destroying. Overall, it seems like a really nice array of effects here on a field spell. And then we have quite a few trap cards to go over. Wow, I didn't even expect that much. So we have Tearalament's Metanoise, which is their first trap card. It's a normal trap. You can only use one of each effect per turn, and only once that turn. It says if you control a Tearalament's monster or a Visas Starfrost, target a face-up monster your opponent controls and change it to face-down defense position, then send a Tearalament's monster from your deck to the graveyard. And if it's sent to the grave by a card effect, you can target a Tearalament's monster in your graveyard and add it to your hand. That seems like a really nice array of effects. So basically, you have a an Amazement, whatever it is, Wonder Wheel. Is that the one that turns things face down? Something like that. The Amazement one that changes things face down. So not only do you have that, but also you have the ability to dump immediately from your deck to fusion summon for that. So even if you don't really have any sort of way to fusion summon or any way to access your monsters turn 1, as long as you have even one of the monsters, you can just have that on board and then dump one, and you can immediately at least go into Kitkalos, right? And then it also says if it's sent to grave by card effect, you can add from grave to hand, which I think is really solid considering you're going to be milling your deck a lot. And so on your turn, if you're not activating this, you're just going to be able to use its effect to add your things back from grave to hand, the ones that you aren't shuffling back at least. And so you can get some really good recursion there. Next up, we have Tearalament's salic, something like that. It's a continuous trap that you can only use one effect. You can only use each effect, actually, I'm sorry, once per turn. If you control a Tearalament's monster or a Visas Starfrost, you can target an effect monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, then send a monster you control to the graveyard. And if it's sent to the grave by card effect, you can add a Tearalament's monster from your deck to your hand. That is very powerful. Wow. So for the low cost of literally just controlling one of your archetypal monsters, you get to imperm something, and then you send a monster you control to the graveyard, which would be a hindrance in a lot of decks. However, you're basically just triggering their effects to fusion summon, so you're actually just plussing more than you are negging for this. So that is super nice. And then the similar mill effect to Metanoise, except, you know, this one's better because you can search from your deck. And so if this gets milled, and it's not a one effect per turn from the looks of it, it's just one of each effect. And so you're getting free advantage even if it's milled, and you're not only going to be able to fusion summon if you sent a monster, but you're also going to be able to add more things to fusion summon later, and you can access your things that, you know, trigger on the opponent's turn, like I think the one that starts with a K, I don't know. That seems like a very good card there. We finally have Tearalament's Crime or Climb. It was poorly translated from the looks of it. It's a counter trap that says you can only use one effect per turn and only once that turn. When a spell or trap card or monster effect is activated while you control a Tearalament or Visas Starfrost, negate the activation, and if you do, shuffle that card into the deck, then send a monster from your hand to the graveyard. And if it's sent to the grave by card effect, you can target one of your banished Tearalament's monster and add it to your hands. So I think the weird banished recovery is for Reinoheart, or whatever it was called, because that's like the only one that mentions banishing it when it leaves the field for that I remember. So that's just kind of eh. But of course, you know, it is an Infernity barrier. You know, we haven't seen these on any archetypes in a good while, at least for the most part. And also shuffling back instead of destroying or banishing is also really, really nice, because like I said, it is some of the best removal in the game. And then it does send a monster from your hand to the graveyard, so yeah, it can be dead sometimes, but you're mostly going to be plussing if you can activate it. And so overall, I think that's a really nice counter trap card to have in an archetype. So I'm going to discuss what I think about the archetype while I go through all the cards and allow you to look at them once more. What do I think about Tearalaments? I think this deck is really, really solid. So all of them being able to trigger a fusion summon when they're sent to the grave, or not sorry, but if they're sent to the grave by card effect is really nice, because you just recur the resources back immediately into your deck. You don't have to like banish them or anything like that. As well as, you know, the fusion monsters are actually not underwhelming in the slightest, especially because one you can access with instant fusion, Kitkalos right here that we're passing by right now. So that's really solid right there. It's kind of just similar to the power level of Predaplant Ambulo Meliodas. So I think that is super nice for the deck. The field spell is also really nice, being able to add on resolution, so I believe it dodges Ash Blossom, and it also makes your fusions gain, I believe, 1,000 attack in total, so that is super good. The deck has access to a lot of removal and just a lot of big bodies in general, meaning that you're going to be able to deal with certain threats really easily. However, it probably would have issues with things that are unaffected. However, the removal is still really nice, being able to not only destroy but also shuffle back, and they have the Omni Negate here, and so they're going to be able to like stall the opponent a lot, so they can punch with their bigger bodies and overall gain a lot more card advantage, because this definitely seems like a deck that's going to be gaining a lot of card advantage, because they add a lot from grave and deck to hand, banish to hand, just adding a lot of things to hand, or shuffling them back into the deck or bringing them back onto the field. Of course, this can also work really well with other archetypes that want to be sent to the graveyard, especially by card effect. Like I was thinking Shadal's. You do have access to Window with literally all the monsters except for Reinoheart, and you can fusion summon any fusion monster from your extra deck as long as you use them as material. This might even be able to be used in Despia, because I think, yeah, this would trigger Despian Tragedy, I believe, because it sends to the grave by card effect. I think that is really powerful, and there's no sort of lock from the looks at it that I can see. So this not only feels like it'd be a pretty good standalone archetype, but it feels like it'd be a very good engine as well. So with that in mind, what would I give this deck in a rating from 1 to 10? I'm going to give it a nice 8. I think that this is a really solid archetype just from all the stuff we've seen so far, and of course it is going to be getting more support in the future. This seems like an archetype that they really want to push, much like Scareclaw, even though, you know, Scareclaw is a lot more underwhelming than this. But I really can't wait to see what it does and what all of the other Visas Starfrost line continues to be, because I'm really interested to see if this will turn out to be a whole storyline like Fallen of Albaz, or if it'll somehow link to it in some sort of way. But until we find out there, that's gonna have to do it for the video, guys. Tell me what you think about this archetype in the comments below. Thank you all so much for watching. If you liked it, please sure to leave a like, as I'll put this video and the channel into YouTube recommended. And if you really liked it and you want to see more content like it, like the rest of my review videos, I have one for just about everything that comes out, then perhaps consider subscribing, because we're on the way to 1,500 subscribers by the time I graduate. But once again, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. This is Aurora, signing off.